go over the Fujifilm 3264. Done a lot of testing with the GFX. Ha 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 ha. Have the three currently available lenses: 3264, 63mm, and 120mm macro slash portrait lens. This is the 32-64. 35mm equivalent would be a 21mm to 51mm. You take the focal and then GFX and multiply it times 0.79. Fit and finish are absolutely superior. I don't care about weather resistance, like, oh look, it's weather resistant. It doesn't mean anything at all. I know there's 3 O-rings in this thing, but if you talk to anybody that repairs cameras and lenses, they'll tell you that the lenses and cameras that come in for repair are those that are marked weather resistant, and they have corrosion and weather resistance issues, so I don't suffer under the delusion. People are like, oh my god, it's a new lens or camera, it's weather. It doesn't mean anything at all. It means absolutely nothing. This is faster than the 63mm because that uses a stepper motor. It uses the same sort of stepper motor if you have a Fuji X-T2, like you find in the 27mm, the 10 to 24, the 14mm 2.8, 16mm 1.4, the 35mm 1.4. That stepper motor, you notice that kind of jittering motion. That's a stepper motor. This is actually uses linear motors with no gears on rods. It is a lot faster autofocusing. However, when you're talking about fast autofocusing on medium format, it's completely meaningless. This is slow, purposeful work for commercial, product, corporate, high-end fashion. This is, while you could use this on the street, and really the only GFX lens that I would even think of using on the street would be this one, because not only is it a zoom, but the quality is absolutely impeccable, but it's also the fastest autofocusing. However, it doesn't have optical image stabilization like the 120mm f4 is. I noticed that while this camera, and I know it's an expensive camera, but comparatively so to a Mamiya Leaf or Phase 1 or Pentax, I mean, it's made better than them, and it's a lot cheaper. So, people don't take that into consideration, like, oh, the camera's really expensive. Compared to what? I mean, I know obviously people don't need it. I mean, I've been fishing for a really good medium format, and I shot medium format film for ages, have really good medium format digital for years and years, and there's nothing out there that I wanted. It was too overpriced and it wasn't worth it. This is all the awesome. The build quality is even beefier than the X-T2, not by much. The X-T2 is plenty beefy enough. But this is all that in a bag of chips and priced cheap too. But anyway, this is about the 32-64. I can realistically say now, and I will do the GFX review later this week, that if you're only going to have, the only problem with this lens is finding it now. Camera West actually called me today. They said, you know, you called us for this lens. We actually have one in stock. So if anybody's looking for one, Camera West on California has one. That if you're going to have one lens for your GFX camera, this is absolutely it. Realistically, I'll do the 63mm review tomorrow or something, but yeah, 77mm filter on this. I actually do have a filter on this. It's an expensive B&W German AR-coated prophylactic IE protective filter. 15 elements. I'm not going to stick any of protective filters on my prime lens GFX lenses, but I do want it on this one. This is the lens I'm actually going to, in the very, very near future, meaning this week and next week, be doing a lot of walking around with the GFX. Absolutely love this lens, the output. I got an image link below. Just see the sharpness and the micro contrast off of my buddy Don. I've got a portrait of him below. It's just straight out of camera. It's not really a portraiture shot, but it is of him. The image is sideways for some reason. Flickr does that apparently on super huge images. The orientation is correct for normal viewing, but yeah, click the link below. You can download it and reorientate it yourself, but Flickr did that. F4, 14 elements, 9 aperture blades. Something interesting that you only find in like really expensive older Zeiss lenses and current ultra high-end portrait lenses like the DC Nikkors from Nikon that are made in Japan is the is the felt lining, which is all done by hand. It's actually glued, and this is actually a nickel-plated brass mount ring on this GFX lens, just like some of the high-end the X series lenses for the X-T2, X Pro 2. Is the felt lining, which drops on light reflectance, which would cause rear element to sensor bounce. You know, extreme precision fit and finish on this. But I mean, everybody says that, like, this is an extremely well-made lens. It's like, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. I love it every time someone says that. The important thing is that, and I'm a hardcore nut for prime lenses, especially on medium format. It's like, you're going to have medium format quality. Someone says, well, you know, zoom and medium format, they don't really go together. And that would obviously be true. For portraiture, obviously, you know, no one's going to buy like a Nikon D810 and buy, you know, purposefully choose a zoom lens. Not that you couldn't do good portraiture with like an 80 to 200 or 70 to 200 2.8 on a full frame camera, but you're going to grab for the 85mm 1.4. Obvious for bokeh reasons, you know, that super fast aperture. And I know this is obviously only a f4, however, this is relatively, as far as the bokeh and the depth of field, not too far off from right at, I believe, a 3.5 or nearer to a 2.8 on the medium format on on this lens relative to FX. But if I could only have one lens for my GFX, this would be it, even though it is a zoom lens. The images they're stunning. The pop is stunning. It's nice about micro contrast. Wow. I knew I wanted this lens, and thanks to Fujifilm for finding it for me. Regardless of medium format or otherwise, this ranks actually, and this is an important point that I made that I wanted to drop in this video, as a pinnacle, topmost zoom lens that I've ever owned or do own. I own many, many hundreds of lenses. Literally hundreds and hundreds of lenses, and this ranks right up there in the top 3, if not number 1, as far as, yeah, even better than my absolute super expensive 70 to 200 2.8. I actually have no other zoom lens that I could think of that. There's an older 70 to 210 f4, which is pretty damn close. It's an old Nikkor lens, 70 to 210mm f4. It's a D series screw drive. It's actually a zoom lens that actually renders like a prime lens. This does an even better job than that. So this is actually top 3 zoom lens period that I own or ever have owned, if not number 1. I actually can't discriminate between the 3 of them to make a decision on which one is absolutely the best, but it's unquestionably exquisite. It is $2,300, but this is medium format glass. 2 aspherical elements and 15 elements. It's 2 pounds, and it's absolutely just bleeping impossible for you to own this lens and have anything, you know, untowards to say regarding owning it or having a regret of owning it. And I don't say that lightly, especially about a zoom lens. Fuji did an excellent job, because that's the one thing where you don't want to have, you know, this sort of image potential on a GFX camera like this medium format digital sensor, and then, you know, slap something on it that's gonna, you know, dump all over the potential, you know, relative to a prime lens like what's on there right now, the 63mm, which is a 50mm equivalent. This 25mm equivalent for 35mm, 25mm to 51mm, which is the 32 to 64, is an absolute must-have for your GFX. And that's going to be the only lens that I could say that it's an absolute must-have of the current 3 that are available. I will be testing the 23mm f4 and the 110mm f2, which is a portraiture lens. The only one with optical image stabilization is the other lens that I have, which is the 120mm GFX lens f4, which is macro and portraiture. So that's it. There's really nothing. I couldn't even find a single review on it. I was like, well, maybe someone else has reviewed this lens already. You know, I was like, I came up to these conclusions. Let me see what someone else has to say on it. Not that that would influence anything I say. And there isn't one out there. There's nothing else out there. There might be a couple things on the internet. There's certainly nothing on YouTube. But I didn't seek anybody else's opinions on that. I was like, well, let's see who else has reviewed this lens. So apparently I'm the first to do a video review on the GFX 32 to 64. Even though this lens and camera have been out now for a few months. But nobody owns it. You know, even the top 10 photography channels, which are making a lot of money. You know, there's no denying that they're making a lot of money. Why don't they own this camera? I don't care. I really don't care what the answer to that question is, but it's kind of perplexing. But anyway, so that's that. That's the Fujifilm GFX 3264. Let me know if you have any questions about it. I've been eagerly and happily using this lens for the past several days, today especially. And click the link below if you want the portrait to my photography god buddy Don. And just don't make sure, well, just realize that you will see absolutely every freaking detail, and you could count every eyebrow hair and every, like, oh god, you know, like when you zoom in, when you have the detail and the resolving power of this combined with this, man, when you're looking at it at 100%, you're like, oh damn. Even the most beautiful person in the world will look like a dog at 100% with a medium format sensor. Really. There's no way in hell that Amy is going to drop a RAW file from this camera into Lightroom and use the sharpening tool. It's not going to happen. There's just no way. It's like, I need to drop the sharpness some. I can see too much. I can see too much. It's literally, it's like that. And that's only the 30 megabyte superfine file. Imagine what the 160 megabyte TIFF file looks like, converted from a compressed, lossless compressed RAW file. Oh my god. Even worse, right? So, anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you like these videos, you can drop me a buck or two. Because I pay for all this gear. I don't rent it. You know, like the other people that like rent stuff, it's like I actually have to squeeze and squeak every penny to own the gear. Yeah, I'm not renting this gear. I actually put my money where my mouth is. Okay? Unlike other people. It's like, I'm renting this, I'm going to tell you about it. It's like, yeah, you're just renting it, you know? Does that count? As opposed to the guy that saved his pennies up and bought it? A little bit of a difference. So glad I own this lens. This lens is actually going to be living on my GFX. Not the 63mm, even though this is obviously a lot heavier than the 63mm. Thanks for watching. Bye.